Natalie, here we are again talking about the special session. After 7 months of talking about property taxes, Proposition HH, and of course the November special session, I think we thought we were done. But now, just today, the governor came out with a new call for local governments to lower their mill levy. So, Natalie, what do you think about all of this?
Well, it's first of all, it's not his first request or first mention of that tactic, but it hasn't been as bold and in the face of the public as presented today. We'll show a couple slide clips about where he's promoted this, but it is amazing. 7 months here, and we're kind of back to square one of where we were. So a lot of money, aggravation, and all of that, but there's still time, and we're going to talk about how people can still make a difference here with a deadline extension. And we're going to start with where we got. So if you want to go to the next slide, we can jump right into discussing where we are at this point.
100%. I think one of the big takeaways, if you don't get anything else out of this, or you talk to somebody about what's going on in Colorado politics, the big lesson is the special session failed. The special session failed in its primary goal of lowering Colorado's property taxes by a significant amount. So the big question we're talking about tonight, in addition to everything he said, is now what, right? That's what people are asking. That's what people are looking for.
Yeah.
So where is this meaningful property tax relief? That's what, everybody saw this coming. The governor, the state legislature, all these politicians knew that property taxes were going to be skyrocketing. And the call has been out for, like we said, for at least 7 months, for longer than that, for years. Where is this meaningful property tax relief coming from? So why do I say the special session failed? Why can we say that? Well, here's a Colorado Sun article from November 20th, right after the special session, saying how much homeowners will save. I'll go ahead and read that here. The average Colorado homeowner will save a little over $200 on their property tax bill due in April. The amount of savings may be higher or lower based on your home's value and your local mill levy rate. So, ladies and gentlemen, $200. Special session at a cost of $24,000 a day. All this aggravation, this time, everything that went into Proposition HH. And here we are with $200 for the average homeowner. Very small amount of money, not meaningful at all.
Yeah, in light of what they're giving up here, this is roughly about $200 million worth. And we're going to talk about a prior citizen initiative where when we were talking about meaningful is to the tune of $1 billion in savings. And what they handed out here in this legislative package is $200 million they had just set aside anyway. So not very much.
Colorado property owners, especially commercial property owners who saw no savings, no relief coming out of the special session, should be getting their pitchforks and torches and making their voices heard, because this is absolutely ridiculous. The legislature has failed in its duty. And as we're going to see, it's up to local governments now to kind of take over.
Yeah. And in these prior, just to note, other versions of the property tax relief, commercial and business, all of those, that set that really drives inflation prices, all of these different things, also actually affects wages, things like that. They're being completely left out in this package that was put forward. So there's no end to this story. It's going to continue here. And in the legislative session, going back, we had the bills that were presented roughly in the last week of the regular legislative session. Then we had the special session, which took place on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and a Monday, when most people expect to be, going down to the Capitol. We're going to play a clip here where I had testified in front of the House and Local Government Committee hearing. And this goes to the point really about how bad the process was. And I could go on about a whole stretch of something that I haven't mentioned that much of here before, a little bit, but just trying to find the public records on these hearings, the bills, the communications has been a challenge. And I think after you hear the testimony here and the response, that sums it up pretty accurately, what the view has been from that Gold Dome to public participation in this process. So folks, you get to hear this testimony, just me, myself.
So, Natalie, you were speaking on Senate Bill 1, which was the preordained solution. This was the Democratic-controlled legislature, the leadership's idea of what this meaningful property tax relief was supposed to be. This was their big bill that they pushed and disregarded all the other ones that might have made more sense. So let's hear what you had to say on November 19th at the House and Local Government Committee hearing.
Thank you. My name is Natalie Menten. I'm representing myself. This really is Proposition HH, just repackaged through this special session or extraordinary session. The one part that is missing is the 1% inflationary clause that was in HH. But that's only because it's limited in these actions to the 1 year. But I want to let you know that this extraordinary session was exceptionally hard to navigate. And you should know that there would be many more of the public that would be here online, or better yet, testifying in that room, if the process had been open and transparent. But it was not. I spent Friday and Saturday down there and watched firsthand while bills were presented. Well, first of all, to start, transparency rules were waived right from the get-go. On a vote, transparency rules gone. And then from there, to be able to keep up with the bill's language, since it hadn't been published prior to opening, the fiscal notes was a challenge. Moving on, this really is HH broken up. The Tabor rebate hijack that occurs here is in the earned income tax credit, which is in another bill. I think this really does highlight that HH was multiple subject, which many of us knew. It was very clear. But that being what it is, that earned income tax credit bill is where the part of HH where Tabor refunds are diverted is what occurs. And it's happened under the dome here over the last 2 days, continuing into today. Now, what I believe really that does is picking winners and losers. And it was a stray from the mission of property tax relief. In the intent given to the voters, maybe it was technically within that executive order, but what I believe the mandate from the 60% of the voters was, don't touch our Tabor refunds. And what turned around in the special session is that's what occurred. $185 million, that's estimated. And it clearly says it in the fiscal note once finally got to that's an estimate, and it could certainly go up, and that means more of our Tabor refund will go away. Look at Ref C and where that went, and the billions of dollars that government has kept instead of being refunded to taxpayers. So this trend continues. What should be done at a statutory level, because that's what you can do under the House or in your position, can't amend the Constitution, thank goodness, without vote, is that amending the 5.5 statutory cap, the annual mill levy law that's already in place. The problem there that exists, because this law has been around for a long time, pre-Tabor, and it limited property tax spikes. That should be amended to limit local government's permanent waiver from that restriction. And it's a 5.5%, just very simple, easy, clean cut, no winners, losers, no shenanigans like the money fuss.
If you could please wrap up, you're out of time, so please conclude your remarks.
There needs to be a control over local property taxes, but what came out of this property tax bill is not nearly enough. That is my ask for amending. Thank you.
So great testimony, Natalie. Really appreciate you taking the time, putting forth the effort to be so involved in our state legislature and be a voice for all of us taxpayers out here. And, speaking these truths to these legislators who don't want to hear it. It's impossible for the average person to participate in this representative government that we're supposed to have, this democracy that's the sacred cow of our state legislature. But how are people supposed to have input? How are people supposed to be able to communicate effectively with their legislators, with the people who are representing them? If they don't have access to the bills, they don't have access to the fiscal notes. It's totally a non-transparent process, and I really appreciate you highlighting that.
Yeah, and just to cover for the people who weren't there firsthand, don't get to see, they don't have televised thing in the committee rooms, is bills, some of the bills for the special session were published on the internet up to the night before the session started at 9 a.m. on a Friday. Some of these bills were kept confidential, and that it's not even, they're not hiding it. They plainly said, we keep them confidential until they come up in on the floor for introduction, and then they go to a committee. So they didn't even have these things posted in advance. And, I went up to Leslie Herod, state rep, when they were doing the emergency rental assistance thing, which is a whole nother deal, and asked her for the fiscal note after she had just opened up in comment to the committee and said, can I have a copy of the fiscal note? She goes, no, you can go get it online. Well, it's not published online. So, I go over to the clerk, I'm asking him, he's like, well, I don't have a copy. Finally, they bring out some copies. The legislators didn't even have the ability to read it until that moment. So then they pause, but I mean, this is how they conduct the business when they've known about this for months. So anyway, I'll stop with that, but I'm just saying firsthand experience. And one other thing, though, we also had the Capitol being closed down. We had the gallery being closed. And I mean, you saw that too. So just that overall thing of, they got we're going on, it's actually well over 7 months. We are going on years now, which we're going to talk about in a moment after we get through the rest of this slide here. But, hurry up, rush. Just, this is not how to conduct this type of public policy. So go ahead.
Oh, it's a total affront to this democracy that these people claim to love so much. But it's also very telling in terms of, we talked to several legislators down there. I got some good, really video interviews, really quick statements from them on the Free State Colorado Twitter, talking about, the cake was already baked. Mike Lynch said that, and others saying, the fix is in. These legislators have this whole planned out. Senate Bill 1 was their bill. It's been planned out for a long time. They had all the information available to them, but not willing to share it to the public or to the other legislators because they wanted to avoid any criticism, right? I mean, they wanted to push it through with that minimal scrutiny.
Yeah, and I've got actually a Cora in the works. I've gotten the first response from Governor Polis's office asking for the text and the emails for the days leading up to the special session after the election.
Well, hold
and
on.
Then through current. And it's a long story, but let's just say from that email account, there's very, very little discussion. So I'm interested to see when the second part of the Cora response comes back, how much was in there. I think it'll be very, reflect very much what I found in a Cora from earlier this year. Anyway, finishing up with this hearing, I think you're going to play. So y'all that are watching this, you heard me comment, and a lot of it was about the policy part, but I don't think I went on too long about expressing aggravation and really expressing it for others who, we're talking around the holidays too. They weren't there this Friday, Saturday, and that Sunday and Monday. And I think I've been around long enough that I feel confidence that in some ways I'm speaking for a few people when I say things. But usually chairs of these committees, will be very respectful. So I was really surprised when the chair of this committee responded to my public comments with what you're going to play here.
So committee chair, Representative Meg Froelich, heard this testimony, went on for some time from Natalie, from other people about this big bill, the big bill that they're pushing through that was supposed to solve the property tax issue here in Colorado. And let's hear what she said.
Well, we'll hold off because this is plenty of folks. Committee, questions for any of these people? We are not seeing any, which means your testimony was excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. We know it's short notice. We know it's sometimes hard to navigate. So great, we fit it in before the game, so you can't complain. Thank you so much.
So they fit it in before the game. We can't complain, because that's what everybody down there cared about, was getting all this through, getting this pretense of democracy over with before the Broncos game. How did that go over, Natalie?
I felt just loved. Like I really, really was, a taxpayer and resident and a voter of Colorado. And my voice was really, really important. Not quite as much as whatever kicks off a Bronco game or the sportscasters who tell you all about the game. That would be, I guess, a higher priority. So I think going back, that kind of just summed up what I feel like after this year personally is you don't have anything to complain about. It just really disappointing in the system. It's really surprised that chair would say that. If I think one of the Republicans had said something like that, they would have just gotten ripped by the chair. But here's a chair saying something like that.
Yeah, how dismissive. I mean, how disrespectful to the people of Colorado they're just playing political shell games with our millions and billions of dollars. And, hey, as long as we get it all over with before the Broncos game, don't complain. I mean, absolutely and utterly sickening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very similar to when you sometimes, I hate to say these things because then some people may feel like they don't want to go down and fight at the Capitol. But how many committee meetings have you been in where the committee members will just like wander in and out? And I know sometimes they're going to other committee hearings, they've got to present their own bill, but sometimes they're just like leaving for no reason. It's just very dismissive. I think you used the right word. Anyway, you can keep going.
Yeah, just give people a taste of how our state government, how our state legislators view the people of Colorado, view the taxpayers, their personal piggy bank to fund their pet projects, and at this enormous cost to push these things and just totally disregard the public. It's just another reason, really. I mean, it should be motivating people to get involved, to show up, to get down there, to know who your representatives are, and let's start holding them accountable come 2024. That's my thought.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and move on here.
Yep.
So this gets us to today. Go for it, Natalie.
Yeah. So now we've got the special session. We've been, again, this is months, this is years going on with this issue, but now Governor Polis here today had a surprise Denver Post editorial along with the primary spot on his Twitter feed calling for local districts, which I think somebody's been talking about this quite a bit. I don't know. Have anybody's been talking about this? Our local districts across Colorado, including fire, library, sanitation, school. This is Polis's own words here. School and counties. School and counties, two of the biggest line items on a tax bill, now have a huge opportunity and responsibility to act in the upcoming weeks to help reduce the cost of living for Coloradans. I urge you, says Polis, to reduce your mill levy as much as possible. On Twitter, Governor Jared Polis, I just signed a law to reduce property taxes. Yeah, a little bit. Ask your local elected officials to do the same. And there's an urgency, and there's a reason they're getting nervous now, and this is the sign of it. And the reason they're getting nervous, we can go into, if you want to go to the next slide here.
Definitely. I just want to say one last thing on that editorial. It's basically Jared Polis de facto admitting that his special session failed to provide meaningful property tax relief, that they didn't do what they set out to do, and they're worried about taking the blame when people's property tax on an important election year. 2024 is going to be a massive election year in Colorado, and property owners are going to be pretty upset with these record high bills and been basically lied to by the governor.
Commercial with nothing.
Commercial property owners are going to face, I mean, it's going to be, you're talking mom and pop businesses closing down. You're talking about small businesses, entrepreneurs under attack with these outrageous taxes. And you have this governor all over, social media to taking credit, and then the reality when they get their bill, they say, "Hey, I thought you said you were giving us some sort of, I thought you guys were lowering our property taxes," when they're going to see the largest tax, one of the largest tax increases in Colorado history. So yeah, so why else are they nervous, Natalie?
Well, and this is where it goes back to some years we've been fighting over this. So really briefly, people will maybe remember for 2021, Advance Colorado was doing a ballot issue, number 120. It had gotten approved. It was out on the street. It was getting signatures. The legislature, once again, at the last moment, decided to run Senate Bill 21-293. What that did was kneecapped the citizen initiative. And you'll see in the highlight here, so it's happened in the final days of the 2021 legislative session. And this is from a clip from a law firm that actually represents a lot of governments. So, not nobody's blog site, but they say by passing Senate Bill 293, the effects of the citizen initiative number 120 have been dramatically limited to only 2 subclasses of properties. So what they were doing was playing games with the Colorado laws that talk about different property classes and the rate. So that has built up pressure going back to that point. Gallagher just passed year prior. They've known this long that these issues were a problem. Should be noted with this one, the citizen initiative was going to save about, let's say, reduce that increase, right, that we've been talking about. It's not as much a tax cut, reducing the increase. This would have been a $1 billion reduction with the proposition, the citizen initiative. What the legislature offered up in number 293, from recollection, was about $200 million. Very close to what we just saw with the same cycle. So they're willing to spit that $200 million in when they get it. Now, if you want to move to the next slide. And I should note, you don't have to go backwards, but what ultimately occurred with 120 was failure. So the government was effective in kneecapping a citizen initiative. So I think of this like a boxing match. Like when we were getting ready to do this PowerPoint, I was actually searching out boxing ring pictures, because or boxing gloves, like boom, like that, because that's what we're at right now. And it's coming down to this match. So we know the government in the past, when citizen initiatives have come up, they will do anything they can to sabotage it. That was a clear cut what they were doing. But now we have 2 ballot issues, one for sure able to go to the ballot, and another one that has just kicked off. Both of these are citizen initiatives. They have to go through what is actually a really rigorous, difficult process, expensive, some more than others. And Initiative 50 has already gotten the signatures, and it's set to go onto the ballot. In summary, it's going to cap property taxes to 4% unless waived with a statewide vote. So the difference being, when we vote on property taxes right now, we vote at a local level. Whether it's to increase the mill levy or a bond issue or changes in mill, even those terrible ballot issues that will eliminate revenue property tax caps, like the 5.5% cap that we've talked about before, and also any taper cap, which shouldn't be allowed, but it is run through. And so with Initiative 50, this is capping it to a 4% unless waived by the voters at that statewide level. That's a pretty notable difference. Following up to that one is one that just kicked off. It's number 97. This one will cap property taxes to inflation, but no more than 2.5%. So in the case right now, we are actually at roughly, we were sitting in like a 4%, but then moving inflation rate, moving into this, I'm thinking of Tabor terms, which is slightly off a little bit, but we've seen this peak which has now started to break and level off a little bit, not spiking as much, that is more around 8%. So you can see that Initiative 97 here, capping it to inflation, but no more than 2.5%, is a pretty vigorous cap on property taxes. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to that. At the level and tax structure we have, I am open for discussion on a cap that, I mean, there's years where inflation is not perhaps 2.5%, maybe less often than saying 3%. But more importantly, something that is also occurring in this initiative is that it revises the property tax valuation process. And the proponents have stated their goal is for predictive tax increases. And we can recognize right now why that is so important. To have somebody knowing that one of their biggest line items for the year, perhaps, especially on a fixed income or lower income or an average like citizen working, not CEO executive, to be able to know what those increases are going to generally be in the range of versus a 40 or 70% increase like we're seeing in some counties in Colorado is very appealing. And the valuation process has also changed. Instead of the comparable sales, which don't take into account a lot of factors that are right off the get-go. You have to actually fight for these things when your property is valued. Let's say, for example, your property, you've lived in it for 30 years and you have no intention of selling. You want to stay there. But the houses around you are all of a sudden pop-ups. I mean, we've seen that parts of Denver where people will actually like scrape something and build like a 2-story, it's brand new, blah, blah, blah. Or even in the scenario where somebody with people in the neighborhood, like COVID, this was actually quite, it happened quite a bit. People were in lockdown. They did a lot of home improvements to their homes. And we've got people who were spending $30,000 or $50,000 on remodeling a kitchen or a bathroom. And those comparable sales then reflected those increases that you didn't necessarily see, but you're having to pay the property tax bill because of it. So the whole valuation end of properties is been a long running topic. That goes back to days of California and Proposition 13. And many people over the years have called for, why am I paying property taxes on something? And at the whim of whatever the neighbors may doing, sure, I'm benefiting in a paper value, but I'm not benefiting in actual hard income where I'm able to support this. So summary, sorry, I gave probably a little bit too much info on that, and it will evolve a little bit because today was the first hearing. So its status is at stage 1 of the title board process. That's called the review and comment hearing, and that occurred this morning. There's probably going to be some tweaks to the language, but I have no doubt whatsoever that the group behind number 97 is very, very, very serious. They represent more a business and commercial property owner aspect. And because of being left out of the conversation during the special session, especially when, ironically, they were up there to help promote HH at the beginning, and then they saw what it resulted in. So I think the moral here is, or the story, it's very difficult to trust what's going on down at that Gold Dome. And it's in the hands of citizens to make a difference here.
100%. No, thank you very much for that rundown. It's very interesting. It's property tax issues not going away. Of course, the legislature beginning in January through May of next year is going to really be all over some of these issues. I could see our state legislature trying to preempt Initiative 97 by introducing some sort of compromise legislation to say, hey, you pull that off the ballot and we'll give you this. So it'll be very interesting to see how it all plays out. But like you said, I hope citizen pressure and citizen involvement, voter involvement, gets enough people motivated, gets these legislators to actually, keep keep Tabor alone, of course, as always, but also provide some real property tax relief as well.
Yeah, this is, to me, it's just like a worldwide wrestling boxing match. I mean, both the two organizations, different organizations between 50 and number 97, and they're established groups. Both of them are very, very serious about this. So with going into January, those legislators are very aware that they have to produce something. And I think that is what spurred Polis to create this editorial that's saying, local governments, you better take this really seriously. He said in the opinion op-ed here that he sent a letter to every local government. I think that's what was the wording of it. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but that'd be about 3,000 governments that just got a letter in the mail or email or whatever saying lower your mill rate, because they're worried if they don't do something serious. I mean, we take that picture of the Simpsons with the pitchforks and the torches, and people will be showing up to be very vocal. I don't know that they'll be carrying the pitchforks and the torches, but they'll be imagining it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And
it's
those,
just another
and
reason.
those bollards that we saw installed down around all the way around the Capitol won't do a thing for that.
No, I mean, it can, like, this whole thing can be discouraging, right? For the average person, like you said, with the testimony and those legislators not listening, but it's important and you can make a difference. You can have an impact, especially the more local you get. So looking at this, next slide here, we see local governments who have taken action. So even though, this has already taken place somewhere all across the state of Colorado. Natalie, can you fill us in on some of these local governments who have provided some property tax relief for their residents?
Yeah, happy to. And I think this is a really good sampling as to the different options that exist. Douglas County decided to reduce the taxable property value. Keep in mind that doesn't affect, like, if you go to sell your house, what's the value? Nothing to do with that. Really, it's just what's the taxable value. They decided to do an across the board reduction by 4%. There was some people who wanted to double look at that method because it wasn't one that had really been contemplated, I think, as much as others, like a straight cap or something. But that's a great example of something that so far has seemed to be being accepted. Logan County is reducing the mill levy rate. A few days ago, they announced this. Former State Senator Jerry Sonnenberg is a county commissioner out there and was happy to share that they're reducing their mill levy rate by 0.679. Mesa County, just a quick blurb on that one, is really pressing the 44 local governments that are within the boundaries of the county to lower their mill. That is good because it's putting peer pressure on. I assume Mesa County may also be looking at that also, but keep in mind, as far as I know, Mesa County is also one of the ones that has a Tabor cap in place. So, as we've mentioned before, if you have the Tabor Taxpayers Bill of Rights fully in force in your local government, or the 5.5% annual levy law in place, you don't have to worry about these spikes. So at the end of the day, we could solve all of this just by going back to those two protections that we have already in our laws. But Mesa County is pressing the local governments to do that because those governments report to Mesa County. Mesa County kind of says, we're kind of a parent government in a way. Do what you need to do and lower it. Lakewood, my hometown, we got half of what we wanted. So I'm not going to give too much credit to any single person with the council, except one person, and that's City Councilor Mary Jansen, who just ended her term, and so is now no longer on council, but right before leaving, she was able to pressure the council into reducing the mill levy rate. So instead of taking a 29% bonus out of taxpayers' pockets to pat the city's wallet. Instead, what came out is just under a 13% increase. And you may be able to tell I'm a little bit disappointed in a 13% increase, especially because we believe they're violating our city charter. But at the end of the day, we did get it reduced, and the battle will continue. And there's some very motivated people who want to see that happen. Colorado Mountain College, they were one of the forerunners, one of the first I know of, who early on this year said they were going to lower the mill. Notable is Colorado Mountain College is in the area where you would see more of the 70% increase in property values. So they had all that more motivation compared to like Lakewood, where we saw roughly a 30% increase, or Jeffco, a 36% increase. The area that's served by Colorado Mountain College, looking at a 70% increase, that is really a wallet whopper, if you want to think of it that way. So what they did is to limit the revenue. So think of it at first, it's just more of a revenue cap, a 5.7% increase, which goes along the lines of the inflation. It's kind of sitting halfway in between. Might be kind of more in their area that they focused on. But those are some options of governments who have taken action. There are more of them out there, but there are not nearly enough. And I think partly because there really is still not enough citizens who are there with the pitchfork and the Bic lighter at the city council meeting going, hey, forget HH has decided. Yeah, all this questions are out of the way. Lower the mill. And then again, important to note, one of the biggest ones on our property tax bill, the school districts, again, mentioned by Polis in his own letter, school district, local electeds, lower your mill. And we've talked about that, where they can lower the override. And a lot of school districts have mill levy overrides. School district board of directors may tell you, we can't change the mill because there's the Public School Finance Act, and it's really big and it's complicated. It's going to take, and we can't lower it. Well, anybody with an override can do that, and it's confirmed. And the only reason some school board members will question that is because they've just never had the conversation. What do you mean reduce taxes? It's a strange foreign language, but guess what? Learn it, do it.
Well, it's very encouraging to see that this is happening. The potential for lowering taxes at the local level is there. And, you know, the governor's pushing for it. Citizens get active, talk to your local elected officials, see if any of them are Liberty leaders. If there's people planning on running for office in the future, whether it's in 2024 or beyond, this is a great opportunity for you to get out there, fight for the people in your community, build a name for yourself, and really understand how the system works. I would encourage anybody out there to do that. Of course, you can leave a comment, reach out to Natalie or myself, I'm sure, especially at freestatecolorado.com. Contact me there, and definitely can help if you have any questions along that path. But kind of looking at the deadline here, seeing where we're at, as you said, Natalie, that deadline had been extended. Usually the local governments would have until mid-December to set their mill levy rates, but it has been extended to January 10th. So Natalie, what's the message people should be taking to their local officials there?
Okay, so we've got 40 days before that deadline. So there is time. And the message is your local government needs to hear from you. And right now, can say firsthand that they are not hearing enough. I've seen that many examples. And with if you want to go to your local library, or you get the Denver Post, and you could make a copy of this, or go to the library and take a photo of it, and you could go to that city council meeting or write them an email. You don't have to show up at a meeting, because this is a weird time of year with meetings. Governments like to take a lot of breaks this time of year, but they still get their email, they still answer their phone or take messages. Tell them the governor sent me. lower the mill levy. I mean, it could not be any more obvious than black and white.
Perfect. Yes. I mean, the governor's behind you. Something that Natalie and I have been talking about for months. There's multiple
Months,
videos,
hundreds
months
of
and
minutes,
months.
hundreds, thousands of minutes.
If you're a longtime follower of our video series, you've heard this message over and over again. But hey, the governor, maybe he watched our videos, Natalie, and
I
he's
think
coming
so.
out and he's coming out
That's
and
one of those likes.
came out and said, Natalie was right on that video. We do need to lower the mill levy at the local level. Polis is hanging his head in shame for failing at the special session, and he's worried about his future ambitions, of course, like all politicians are. And this property tax issue could really be the albatross around his neck, as I think John Caldera had said. But really good opportunity here for people to get locally involved. You have the governor's support out there, liberty activists. So go forward and get those mill levies lowered.
Yep. No bigger invitation's going to come than this. And so, yep, this is where we're at right now. Come back to square one. Good news is we didn't lose our Tabor. So, we defeated HH. Our energies are not lost. Sometimes just we get a little bit veered and the government didn't help us much here, but we're back on track. Got our Tabor in large part, even though we've got temporary diversions in the EITC, the equalization. But end of the day, we're in a good spot. 2 ballot issues ready to put some serious pressure on them. Local governments being begged by the governor to lower their mill and head off this boxing match. Like, it's not even boxing match. It's like, what's even bigger than that? Like that kickboxing thing. I don't know, whatever it is. It's better than the Broncos game though. Anyway, there's some action coming. These local governments have better take this serious.
Take it serious. Well, thank you, Natalie, for so much, for all your hard work, for all your efforts to defeat Proposition HH, your efforts at the state legislature during the special session, and for all of your guidance along this path. So thank you so much. Look forward to talking to you again. Hopefully you can get some rest after this crazy time we've had, and get rested up because there's more battles ahead.
Yeah, and someday we're going to do a video about something else besides property taxes, I think.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Natalie. Take care, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.